Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and I'm going to do a video about colorizing black and white videos. May not be something you need to do. I happen to be a Doctor Who fan, and I was looking at some old episodes of Doctor Who and thinking, gosh, is there an easy way to use AI to colorize stuff? This is what I found out so far. Particularly it's useful for black and white photos. Obviously there's a lot less chance that you're actually filming in black and white video, but anyway, you might find this useful. First of all, let's look at photos. I found the best way of colorizing a black and white photo is Photoshop. I try and steer away from the Adobe software these days just because you have to pay for it monthly and that's irritating. But they are still very good, and one of the things that is really good is Photoshop. I tend to use Affinity Photo because it does everything I need for photographic editing, but it doesn't have this AI stuff, which is coming more and more into Photoshop. And out of all the stuff I've tried, this was the best. So take this black and white photograph here. It's from roughly 1964. There's a little David Clarke there. What you do is you open it up, you go into the filters, choose the neural filters. There's a whole bunch of stuff here, but these are all AI-based filters. So they're all using AI to do stuff. And what I want to do is I want to colorize it. So literally I tick that and it colorizes it, which as you can see off the bat has done a pretty good job. I've had some photographs that have come out perfectly the first time round. Now if you want to change it, like maybe this brick wall here isn't a nice bricky color, you can just click on it over here, choose the color. So let's choose a kind of bricky color, which is kind of dark orangey brown, bosh, and then it colors it in. So that's not good enough. Let's try changing it a bit more. And I can just click on there and it fills that in. I want that flower to be a different color. Let's click on that flower and make it yellow maybe. You're not happy with some of these? Again, you can just click on them and change the color. So that is a lawnmower. It probably should be grayish, whereas me should be more pinkish. But that does produce very, very good colorized results from absolutely nothing. Oh, I did have ginger hair. Maybe I should be a bit more ginger. But to me, that produces very, very good colored results very quickly. I say it's using AI. Be nice, obviously, if you could do that with video, which you can, but I'll come on to that in a minute. So there we are. Yep, you can do nice colorized still images. The problem with Photoshop is it just does still images. Now I do have a faster way of doing this on video using another program called HitPaw. It's just slow in Photoshop because it's not designed for video, but there is a way of doing it with video. So let's have a quick look at that. First thing you do is to take the video and save it out as a series of still images. Now, like I said, I am using this to colorize old 1960s episodes of Doctor Who. The problem with Doctor Who is that it's copyright at the BBC, so I can't really use those examples in this video. So what I've done is taken a regular piece of color video and then made it into black and white, and I'll be using that for the demonstration, which is cheating. So you just have to trust me on what the results are with real video. So take that, go to the neural filters, colorize, and there we are. That has colorized me. And I mean, that's fairly good. My shirt was actually plain sort of beigey yellow all the way through, but actually that's not done a bad job at all on guessing what the colors should be. It does go a bit heavy on the lipstick, I always find, but that's not bad. So yeah, you could do that, and you could come in here and you could do it one frame at a time. Okay, save, do the next one, which is boring. And when an episode of Doctor Who has 36,000 frames, also extremely time consuming. So to get Photoshop to go through and colorize that kind of stuff, what I do is not save it. Now you notice I've got a folder here with a whole bunch of stills in it, which is that little sequence. It's not 36,000, but it's still quite a lot. I want to process that lot. The best way to do this is to use Photoshop's batch processing. So I'm just going to open up one image. I'm going to go to Window and call up the Actions. This lets you set up a series of, if you like, macros. You can set up something that says, okay, run this thing on a whole bunch of photographs at once. I've got to make a new one. I'm going to click on this and I am going to call it something and click record. Now it starts recording everything I do to this image. So what I'm going to do is to come up to filter, neural filters, colorize, and then I'm going to say output it on the current layer and then OK. So having recorded that, I'm going to press the stop button. You might notice there I've already got one here because obviously I've done this before, but that is the one I've just created, and it's got a series of actions that says open up neural filters, do this, blah, 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 blah. I now want to run that on that entire folder of images. So I'm going to come to File, Automate, Batch, choose the action. I've gone and chosen that one automatically, but if not, you just pop up here and choose the one that you've just made. And then I'm going to say, right, I'm going to choose a folder's worth of stuff. Click on this and find the folder's worth of stuff, which in my case is here. And that's my source folder. I then like to tick these two things to stop any dialog boxes. If there's some error or something it just doesn't like very much, I don't want it to stop. I want it to carry on and do as much as possible. And then for the error log, I say, yeah, don't stop for errors, just log them into a file somewhere. And then I will give it a name and shove it somewhere. And I could name it whatever, but I always do that so that it just logs the errors to file and doesn't stop. And then I can come up here and I can either choose to put all the clips into a new place, or I could just say save and close. So if I save and close, it'll just overwrite those things. So the black and white ones will be gone and they'll be replaced with color ones. If I do that one and choose where it has to go, then it's going to be putting them into a new folder. You set the action up, you tell it what to process and what to do with it, and then you click OK. And then you wait for it to happen. And it takes a bit of time. Like I said, I am doing Doctor Who episodes, which are 25 minutes an episode. This here is the folder they're going into, so you can see them being written. But my 25 minutes an episode Doctor Who things, it will take a day and a half, 2 days to do it. Also, when it's doing that many files, it does tend to kind of give up after a while. So it'll get through about 7,000 and then stop. Sometimes it doesn't, but most of the times it does. Doesn't matter if I'm doing save over the top or if I'm saving it to a new folder. Obviously, if it runs out of space, it stops as well. But mainly, I find that I have to restart it a few times if I'm doing several thousand clips. I'm expecting this lot to go through normally. And it's long and it's tedious, but it does a good job. So let's wait for that to finish, and then I'll show you the results. We can even compare it to the original color version, which of course I can't do with my old episodes of Doctor Who. Okay, so that's finished. So let's get out of Photoshop. I've now got a string of images. Now I'm going to bring that back into EDIUS. Obviously this works with any program. Obviously here I'm using EDIUS. It'll work with any program at all because I'm not using anything specifically EDIUS-y. Anyway, here I am going to add in those files. So it's a sequence clip. So that's going to bring it in as a set of images as opposed to a single image. And then to make it easy to use, I'm immediately going to convert it to a video file because EDIUS is not that great at running still images. I have to admit, if you're in something like Resolve, then it runs still images a lot better. But anyway, here I'm going to just convert that to a file. Obviously it's using EDIUS's background rendering, so it pops it into the bin, gets on with it, and is eventually done. Now here's the original. As you can see, I just put an effect on there to get rid of the color. So let's bring the original color back, and you can see that's what the original looks like. And this is what the colorized version looks like, which, you know, is not bad at all. So if I just put them next to each other, you can see that's the original, that's the colorized version. See, it's a little bit flatter, so I could do with changing that. And the color on my shirt is a bit variable. I found the Photoshop thing is actually very, very good at faces. I mean, I know this is cheating. This wasn't black and white in the first place, but it does the same stuff with black and white close-ups. It actually does a very good job on the face. Not so good on people wandering around. It's particularly bad at crowd shots, and some of the backgrounds come out to be a bit of a ready mess. You know, it's not perfect, but in some cases it does a very, very good job. Now, what I'd have to do to tidy that up a bit is obviously I'd have to put some effects on there. So something like a YUV curve. And let's just bring it down, give it a bit more contrast. And while I'm at it, I probably ought to try and color correct the bottom one, because the bottom one is a little bit yellow, to be honest. So let's just put a bit more blue in it and maybe give that a bit more welly as well. Obviously loads of ways you can grade stuff and change stuff. The other thing I found that once I've done that, okay, this looks okay, but if I do that on a long clip, sometimes the color is a bit variable, sometimes it kind of flickers a bit. And I found the best solution to that inside of EDIUS is actually to pop on Neat Video, which is an extra plugin that you have to buy. So you build a profile, you go into the adjust and preview, and you come up to local flicker check. And the flicker check thing actually looks for the image and finds out areas where it might be flickering. And what I do is just do that and then fiddle with this until it all goes blue and apply it. and then render it, and that tends to get rid of the kind of flicker that I sometimes get in the color. Like I say, on this shot, I'm not getting it at all, but of course now I've got neat video on there, it needs rendering, because neat video, although it's very, very good, it does actually really mean you have to render everything. So that actually does a very good job of colorizing things. So like I said, not perfect. When I was doing the still image as well, when it didn't quite get things right, I could put little dots in places to try and bring out the wall and make the wall more bricky. You can't do that with video. You've got to leave it on auto. I have tried doing it, and you can set the points in certain places. Still doesn't work because things move around in it and the dots don't. The dots don't track them. I'd like it if they say put it into After Effects, but they haven't. I don't even think they've changed much. I think they've put it in there and they haven't done much with it since, and they've gone on to other stuff. That's one way of colorizing. I wanted to find a different way of doing it, and I've tried lots of different programs, and the one that I've actually started using is a thing called HitPaw. So if I load that up, so HitPaw is an AI video enhancer. Now you've probably seen previous videos of mine where I talked about using Topaz Video AI. I still use that for upscaling, and it's got some new stuff in it which is really good, and I still think it does a better job than HitPaw. HitPaw does a pretty good job of AI upscaling. I think the other one does a better job. But these things are evolving all the time, but already in the last few months these things have improved. AI is going to get better and better. But I found for colorizing, I like using this. So I am going to go and dig up the video file of me. Now the first thing you'll notice is this loads video files. It's set up to do a general denoising model, and you can click on here and you can see there's other models. Like this one is meant to be particularly good at upscaling faces. These are all upscaling things. I'm heading for this one, colorize. My original video is HD. I'm going to leave it at HD. So I'm going to say no, let's just leave it at 100%. I'm going to choose the format I want it to come out in. Now, I like to save things in really uncompressed formats if at all possible. And this really only does variations of H.264, so I'd prefer it if it did a ProRes or something like that. Like if I choose AVI files, I still can't choose what kind of AVI file. So I tend to just stick it on MOV and leave it in automatic. But the question is, what does this do in terms of colorizing? Now to export it, I've just got to click on that and it gets on with it. Let's do a quick preview. As it says here, the preview won't do the whole thing, it'll just do a few seconds. But there, you can see the results it's getting from the same video clip. Now you won't see it properly until it's actually finished it. You can see there's something weird going on with the shirt here, maybe. You might be able to see that. The colour's slightly changing over time, the face is slightly changing over time, so I don't think it does quite as good a job as Photoshop, but it's an awful lot easier because all I've got to do is click on that, click export, and it just gets on with it. And here you can see the final results. Now I'm still getting a bit of kind of variation on the picture, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop on the neat video onto that. That hopefully sort of calms down a little bit of the flickering. But yeah, there we are, we've now got an acceptable result. Where HitPaw actually works really well compared to Photoshop is on group shots. So if there's a lot of things going on, it does a better job. Let's take this shot of me and Ringo. Here you can see it's done a better job of isolating just the people compared to the background, whereas Photoshop isn't so great on isolating individual pieces out of that. On this shot of Brighton, for example, what you've got here is HitPaw again has done a better job of isolating individual pieces than Photoshop has. But when it comes to faces, Photoshop beats it. But the big thing HitPaw for me has got going for it is the simplicity. Pop a piece of video in, let it do its job. A couple of hours later, you've got a colorized piece of video. A lot easier than all the faffing around inside of Photoshop. There's various ways of paying for it. You can pay for a month, you can pay for a year, or you can pay $350. I don't get anything out of this. You know, I've got no connection to them at all. I don't get any kickback or anything like that. Here you can see the prices, and I paid for a year. It's $99 plus VAT, so they charge English VAT, so it's going to cost you about 100 quid if you want to use this for a year, or you can buy a permanent license, or you could try it out for a month. One thing about the license for HitPaw is that you can only install it on one machine at a time, and if something happens to that machine, if you try and uninstall it and want to move it to a different machine or just wipe that machine, you lose the license and you have to go back to them to ask for a new serial number, which they will give you, but it's just a bit more hassle than your average license. There is also a trial version. On this machine, actually, I haven't activated it yet, so this is what you could do with the trial version. You can try it out, but when you go to export, it's going to say, no, you can't export. So I have the full version on another computer. But that's the best thing I've used for doing video fairly simply. And actually it beats Photoshop in some ways. In group shots, it's actually better than Photoshop. On faces, I think Photoshop is slightly better than this. Of course, it does have other models in there, and I'm very interested in some of the stuff they say is coming in this program. So if I click on the Add Model stuff that's here, you can see you've got your colorized model. Frame interpolation, again, this is in Topaz, but basically it's for doing extra slow motion. It's fancier slow motion than, say, optical flow. So it takes stuff, slows it down and makes stuff up. There's a stabilizer. I'm very interested in stuff that's coming on, like improving low light videos, overexposure. That's something that is not in Topaz at the moment. Very interested in what that looks like when it comes. It hasn't come yet, but when it comes out, I'm very interested in that, because if I've got an overexposed shot, you can fiddle with color correction, but there's a limit to what you can do because there's nothing there in the first place. This will invent stuff. The out of focus model, how many times you've videoed somebody and they're just slightly out of focus. I'm interested to see what that looks like. These ones haven't come out yet, whereas the colorized one has. And like I say, they have a denoising model and they have your variations for upscaling as well. I was also trying to improve some really old Hi8 videos where the color was a bit ropey, and I upscaled it and then I colorized it. So it was colour in the first place, but I took the colour out and I let the colorizing go onto it to see whether that would actually produce a better result. It wasn't perfect, but it was interesting. Now, it was very useful for this particular shot. This was meant for a CGI effect of some guy hanging before he plummets to his death. But when we filmed it, the white balance was completely wrong on the camera, resulting in this awful looking set of colours. And I have tried various ways of cleaning this shot up inside of EDIUS, Resolve, things like that. I gave up and ran it through the colorizer. This is using HitPaw, and suddenly I get a much nicer and acceptable result. He's looking like he's got some colour in his face. And here we are with just a quick composite over the guy hanging above the ground. Very useful in that case to rescue something which otherwise would be a real pain in the neck to try and fix. But anyway, I thought you might find that interesting, even if you don't have the urge to go and colorize lots of old TV programs yourself. It's amazing what AI is doing these days. There's lots and lots of nice things coming along. Particularly for me, I'm looking at improving old Hi8 videos. Generally use Topaz for that, and the colorizing, for which I'm using HitPaw, or if I particularly want to get nice faces, I'll use the Photoshop method of doing it. Anyway, hope you found that useful. I'll be back with some more videos about doing stuff inside of Resolve soon. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course visit my website if you want to know more about the stuff that I do, or if you want some support, you can just give me a ring or send me an email. And if you're interested in getting me to make you a new system to go with whatever editing program you're using, then please get in touch. Apart from that, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.